Hey guys, Sun here. I've been wanting to start this vlog for a really long time, and it took quite a while. I mean, I posted my last video about a year ago, and the one before that a year before. It's insane how fast time flies. But I'm super stoked to start this thing finally. I was really scared of starting it, and then when I started, by the way, I have a screen here, so when I'm looking here, I'm looking at my notes, just so you know. So when I was starting to write all of the topics that I want to share with you guys, I'm obsessed about privacy and security. I find that today's digital world is trying to invade our privacy in unprecedented ways. I mean, in totally unacceptable ways. And there are things that you can do to massively increase your privacy and your security when using your computer. So I started writing the topics that I want to share with you guys. I want to share with you guys all of the research that I've done to get to this point where I mostly feel comfortable using my computer. I'm sure you'll have great feedback. If you have feedback, leave it in the comments. But we're going to start this having in mind beginners that have an appetite for privacy. So we're going to start by going through how to configure macOS. Oh yeah, by the way, this is going to start, as I said, for beginners, and it's going to get into more advanced stuff. Right now, I think that macOS is the best entry operating system for people that crave privacy, security, and that want to eventually bridge the gap and go towards Linux. So if you're more advanced, please subscribe and come back every once in a while. We're going to get to really awesome stuff on the dark net, on using VirtualBox to do compartmentalization, stuff like this. But we're going to start slow. So we're going to start by, I'm going to start by teaching you how to configure macOS in a privacy and security focused way. Then we're going to talk about installing and configuring Firefox. Please don't use Chrome. The business model of Google is to know as much as they can about you so that they can target you with ads. But the NSA also has backdoors to all of this information. So if you care about privacy, you have to let go Google. And de-Googling yourself is a huge pain in the ass. And we'll talk about this throughout this vlog. Not this specific one, but throughout the series, I should have said. So yeah, so we're going to go and we're going to start talking about installing and configuring Firefox. Then we're going to talk about configuring Apple Mail and why using third-party email clients is most of the time a bad idea. Then we're going to talk about how using a password manager and using 2FA is critical when implemented well. I'm also going to talk about my setup that's done on 1Password. I really like the fact that 1Password has a mode where it never uses the cloud. Your data never leaves your computer, so that's really important. Actually, we're going to be talking about data sovereignty and sovereignty in general, meaning this is your computer, it's your data. How can you keep this in your space? How can you have full control over your data? And then we're going to start going into a little more advanced stuff, such as spoofing your MAC address and host name. I'm going to stop there. There's going to be a ton of other topics, so please subscribe and offer, like, just drop comments if you have things that you want to share. I also created on my website a project called the Privacy Guides. It's essentially a set of guides that or tutorials that explain how to do some of the stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you guys on the vlog. The cool thing is that it's hosted on GitHub, so you guys can go ahead and submit a pull request if you want to, suggest a more secure approach to things, or if you want to add another operating system or stuff like this. So please contribute. I'm doing this for you guys, but I'm sure we can establish a relationship and help each other be more secure and private. So, all right. Now, step one, my main computer here is currently set up the way I like it. So I'm going to install on my little external hard drive here a brand new version of macOS Mojave. Not sure how to say this, but yeah. I haven't updated to Catalina or something like that yet. I always wait a while. There's always bugs and stuff like this, and everything's working fine. So give me a few minutes. I'm going to install this, and then we're going to jump right into this first vlog talking about how to configure macOS. Okay, so this part I cannot do using screen capture utilities, so I'm going to be doing it here on my screen with my hands. So choose your country. Now choose your keyboard. Now obviously that part I'm going to have to blur out somehow. So connecting to the Wi-Fi. Okay, now data privacy. This essentially says that Apple is great with your privacy. Now there's a lot of things we can improve. We'll be doing those later. Okay, so I'm not transferring anything as I'm doing a clean install. I will do the Apple ID stuff later. Maybe you can hear my girlfriend upstairs. COVID-19 is making things a little harder here. Okay, so agreeing this. Now we need to create a computer name. So full name will be John Doe. Password, we're going to put a really shitty password because we're going to be improving this in a second. So for now, we're just going to do ASD, 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 ASD. Now, I wouldn't recommend putting a hint here that has anything to do with a password. This is very similar to security questions. We'll talk about this later. Now, it would love you to do the express setup. That way, it's doing everything it wants you to do. So we're going to start by customizing the settings. We do not want to enable location services. Location services uses Wi-Fi network that are in proximity of your computer, and those are logged in huge databases, and using the Wi-Fi networks around your computer and the strength of these networks, Google or Apple are able to pinpoint your computer with an incredible precision. More on this in another vlog, so do not enable location services. Next up, whoops, sorry about that. Next up, time zone. So now it cannot find your time zone appropriately. So for me, I mean, I'm in Montreal, so let's do this here. Montreal, Canada. Now, it would love you to share Mac Analytics with Apple and share crash data with app developers. These can include very personal pieces of information. It depends how the developer dealt with that, but absolutely untick both of these. Now, fuck you, Siri. Siri does not compute answers on your computer. It essentially records whatever you're saying and it sends that to Apple servers. And that's where the artificial intelligence processes that information. So, and worst, someone can activate Siri without you even knowing by saying the magic word. So never, ever enable Siri or Alexa or Google Home. All of these things are excruciatingly painfully invading your privacy. So moving forward, so our Mac should now be set up. What I'm going to do now is, so I am essentially running macOS from my external hard drive because this is my production computer. So we do not want to log into T5. Now, I will be switching from recording this using my camera to, actually, we do not want to log into that either. I'm going to be switching to a screen capture app. So are you ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, so I just finished installed macOS Mojave. Anyways, so let's dive in. As I mentioned earlier, I have my main screen here. You saw this when I did the little transition thing before, so I'll be looking at this most of the time. Bear with me. A lot of the things that we did earlier using the clean install, such as disabling Siri, making sure analytics is enabled. I'll go through these steps again because some of you may have already installed your operating system. I'm guessing most of you, so yes. Okay, now, so first things first, if we go in security and privacy, general, you absolutely want to make sure that you require password immediately, okay? Again, the password for this guide is ASD. We'll change this later because it's a very, very poor password. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we want to change the password. Now, I won't actually change it because I'll be entering this a million times in front of the camera, so you know there's no purpose here. But essentially, you want to use a password that is pretty complicated, but don't make it overly complicated because we'll keep that for your password manager in another video. So you want this password to be something you're able to type extremely fast without looking at the keyboard. So the whole purpose of this is if you're in an internet cafe or something, you want to open your lid a little bit and you want to be able to type it without people seeing it. Hey guys, son of the future here. I'm currently editing this video and I noticed that I skimmed through the password part a little fast. Choosing the right password is actually a really, really important part of setting up your macOS operating system. So what is a good password? I mentioned that it should be something that you're able to type really quickly without looking. So say you put your screen lower and you're able to type it. That's a great way when you're in a public space to type your password. You have to make sure that no one can see it, that there's no cameras that are recording you while you're typing it. Another way, if you're not able to type it without looking, is to use a coat or something and wrap it around you when you're typing it. Edward Snowden made a pretty great case of this in Citizen 4.
Is that about the possibility of overhead?
Visual collection.
So, but once you know typing it is taken into consideration, what is a good password? Well, a good password is something that has to be pretty hard for someone else to guess, and it has to be something that is pretty hard for a computer to brute force. So bad examples of a password is any password that includes your date of birth, your address, your phone number, something that is directly identifiable to you. Other bad examples are using the names of your parents, your siblings, your kids. Now, if we push this a little further, you don't want to create a password that uses words found in a dictionary of any language, ideally. So the idea is if someone is going to try to brute force your password, one of the pretty common ways of doing that is using what we call a dictionary attack. So a dictionary attack is an attack where an attacker uses a large database of words or leaked passwords and tries to brute force your password using these. That makes it way faster than trying each possible permutation. Now, that being said, the shorter the password, the more vulnerable it is to what we call a brute force attack that uses essentially mathematics to go through each possible combination of letters, numbers, and special characters. So the shorter the password, the easier it is to brute force through that. You have to know that computers are able to try something around I think like 1 million permutations per second. It's quite astonishing. So you absolutely want your password to be at least 12 to 14 characters long. It has to be something that you're able to type without looking, ideally. And it has to be something that does not use snippets that are identifiable to you. So date of birth, name of child, stuff like this. And you don't want to use words found in a dictionary. So a really great example of a password would be something that uses words that you invented when you were a kid, words that nobody knows, and a combination of letters and numbers that are not correlated to that initial word you invented and to yourself. I'll go through this in more detail in another video, but I think this is already enough to help you guys choose the right password. Back to the video. So now moving along, App Store and identified developers, this is what you want. Now, if we go into FileVault, FileVault is not enabled. You absolutely always want to enable FileVault. So what is FileVault? You may ask. FileVault is Apple's equivalent to Lux on Linux. It's a way for your operating system to encrypt all of the data on the hard drive. So if ever someone steals your computer, they cannot remove the hard drive, plug it onto another piece of hardware, and then have access to your files. They'll have to brute force that password I mentioned earlier, and 12 to 14 characters is good enough. We definitely need more for sensitive stuff, but we'll get there later. So you absolutely want to enable FileVault. So you go ahead here, entering my password, and then we want to turn on FileVault. Now, keep in mind that enabling FileVault will take some time. You have to encrypt a hard drive. This is a bit different when you're using newer Macintosh computers with T2 chips. Mine is one of the older models, which I prefer. I discussed this in another of my videos. I'll link it in the description, perhaps if I don't forget. Okay, so your iCloud account can be used to unlock your disk and reset your password if you forget it. That's very convenient. No, I absolutely do not want to do this. I want to create a recovery key and not use iCloud. The reason is I do not want my recovery key to be uploaded to Apple even if they say it's encrypted. I want this setup to be sovereign. I want it to be mine. So a recovery key is the way to go. Now, that key is used if ever you forget your password. So you could write it on a piece of paper, but that's really bad for operational security. And I'll discuss OPSEC versus InfoSec in another video. If all of those things are interesting to you, smash that subscribe button. I'll be publishing way more stuff. So my recommendation is you may want to put that thing on a piece of paper, but this is essentially the same as your password. So the way FileVault works is you can have multiple passwords that are capable of decrypting the same information. So you know what? I say continue. I didn't write on a piece of paper. I'm completely fine with that because I know my password, and we'll discuss later in this series how to, manage if ever you lose your passwords or stuff like that. So as you see here, it says, 21 minutes. That will shift a bit. So the good news is this is done in the background, so you can keep on doing things on your computer. You just have to make sure that if you want this to be fully encrypted, well, you have to check to make sure it's done before you stop doing your thing and put your computer to sleep, for instance. Okay, next up, firewall. Firewall is not enabled. You absolutely want to enable firewall, and you want to go in firewall options. You want to say, you want to untick this. So you do not want to allow built-in software to receive incoming stuff. You don't. You do not want to download stuff like this. So automatically allow downloaded signed software to receive. That means that you're essentially giving some developers free access for incoming connections. You don't want this, and you absolutely want to enable stealth mode. So what that means is when you're on a network, like in a Starbucks or at your university or stuff like this, it means that other computers on the network cannot just send broadcasts on the whole network and get your hardware, get your MAC address and your IP address and things like this. Actually, the MAC address, this is, correction. MAC address, we're not talking about the MAC address here. It's really a question of getting your host name and your IP and stuff like this. So you want to enable stealth mode. All right, moving along, privacy. So in privacy, as I mentioned earlier, you never want to enable location services because that's how apps can know exactly where you are. So you do not want to enable this. Now, as you start using your computer, Apple is gonna, well, not Apple, but your operating system is going to be asking you like, hey, do you want this app to have access to your contacts? Things like this. You have to be extremely careful about which apps you allow to your contacts, your calendar, things like this. I guess we'll get there in a later video. So all of this is cool. If you go into analytics, this here is what we did not enable when we did the clean install. So if you're watching this video and you already installed macOS, you want to make sure that those two are not enabled. And moving along, analytics, you absolutely want to limit ad tracking. That is very important. and you can go ahead and just say reset advertising identifier. That is very useful if you've just enabled that feature and you were already running macOS before. Okay, now we'll see what's in advanced. Oh, advanced, that's cool, no problem. Actually, require administrator password to access system-wide preferences. Yes, we absolutely want this. Okay, so moving along. Spotlight, notifications. Okay, notifications. That's something that I tend to do. Okay, if you see here by default, everything has notifications, and by default, they tend to display the content of the alert even if your computer is locked. So you do not want this. So for instance, if we go in iMessage, show notification preview when unlocked. Actually, you see the default is good. So that's what you want. You want to make sure that when your computer's unlocked, you see it. If your computer is not unlocked, it's hidden. So I see Apple has done a good job here at making things pretty secure by default. Some apps may try to make this different, so always double check and make sure that it says show notifications when unlocked. Okay, moving along. Energy saver, yeah, that's cool. Okay, actually while I'm here, my mouse, I'm gonna enable secondary click, but that's not for privacy, obviously. Okay, well, overall, I think we're done in those settings. So if we go in sharing, you'll see that by default, Apple will name your computer John's MacBook Pro. This reveals a lot about you when you're on an internet network such as Starbucks or your university. This is broadcasted on the network. So when you log in to a Wi-Fi network, this is registered in the access point logs. So ideally, you want to use something here that's not your name. In another video, I'll be talking about how to spoof your MAC address, which is the unique identifier of the network card in your computer, and how to spoof your computer name automatically when your computer boots. So each time it boots, it gets a new name and a new MAC address. So if that's interesting to you, stay tuned. This will be published in the future. So I think this is it. This is what you guys need to do when you configure your Mac, initially doing a clean install, or you can follow those steps if your Mac is already configured. This is in no means enough. I mean, this is just really, really basic stuff here. In the next videos, we'll be diving into much more elaborate things, such as using a VPN, such as installing better firewalls, stuff like this. So smash that subscribe button if you're interested, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.